Welcome back, game developers. Today we are going to be creating a note system similar to what's in Resident Evil, Outlast, as well as many other horror or first-person games. This system that I created today is pretty customizable and will follow off of the inspection system we previously created together. Basically, there are two options for either just showing the note itself or showing the note once you're in inspection mode. This took a little while to initially create, so it would mean a lot if you guys could like, subscribe, and comment down below more tutorials you guys would like to see in the future. Also, if you guys would like to support me, get all the files you're seeing today and from every other tutorial I've ever done, as well as see your name along with the other people you see now in the beginning of this video, I have a link for my Patreon down below. Alright, with that being said, let's get right into this tutorial. The first thing we're going to actually want to do is go to our meshes folder right here. Let's create a new folder and let's actually call this folder letter, or just whatever you want for like a basic note. I have a note right here. I got it from Sketchfab. You can get any note you want or just get one from Sketchfab. Sketchfab. Just remember, if you get one from Sketchfab, you want to make sure that it is either CC approved or you give them credit, because you don't want to have a note where you don't actually give them proper credits, and then that be a problem right there. So I'll bring in all the textures that go with this, and just like that, now we can drag all or get all of these, and let's just make sure we save all of them, and let's create a material. So let's go m_letter for this example, and I'll just drag all of the texture nodes onto this letter right here, just so we can have a basic letter that we can see and observe in the actual scene, so we know that our system is really working. So we'll drag them all in, we'll scroll in, make sure we have them all connected. Letter. So now once we have this, we can close this material and make sure that it's using it in here. So let's drag open this letter and make sure it's using m_letter like so, and now this is all taken care of. After this, we're going to want to navigate to our content folder, our first person folder, our blueprints, and then once we're here, we're going to want to go to our interact interface, and we're going to need to make a new function. Just like how we made one for inspect, let's add a new function, and we're just going to call it read note like so, and we're going to make there be two inputs. So let's create the first input and we're going to call it character, and then let's make it of BP_first person character, or whatever character you're using. And then let's do the second input, and that will just be text, but let's just call it note text. And like I said previously, the variable type will be just text. Great, so now that we have this, like you might know, we can just close it, and we're going to utilize that later on. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our BP_base item that we created previously. And remember, like I said previously, if you don't have this BP_base item, it was actually created in the last tutorial that I made. I will link that. But if it's a lot to go over that hour-long video, there's always my Patreon where you can get the files there. But like I said, let's duplicate this, and we're going to call it BP_base note. So now we have our base note that we can create instances of via children blueprint classes. But let's go into this one first, the parent class, and let's open it up. The first thing we're going to want to do is create two new variables. One of them will be of type text, just like before, and we're going to call it the same exact thing. We're going to call it note text. Let's make sure that we make this public, and let's make a new variable, and this one's going to be called auto read ? And the question mark makes it so we know it's a boolean. This is also going to be public, and let's make them both go into the public category. So let's go to public and then into note, and then right here we can keep them. So let's just make it go like so, and then we'll grab this variable and also make it go to public note. So now once we make it children, or make a child blueprint, you'll see that it will be right here, and you can edit the note text and the auto read boolean. Also, another thing to make sure that you do is once you go to create those two variables, go to your note text variable, go into these advanced options right here, and we want to make it a multi-line so that we can edit it just like how a text would be. And basically what that does is we can go right here, and if we want to make it like Dear Samantha, we can create multiple lines by pressing shift and pressing enter. So it makes it way more customizable for us versus just only being able to type in a linear fashion like this and then making it go like that. So it makes it a little bit easier for us that way, and it makes it appear a lot nicer as well. After this, let's go back to our base note, and let's make sure that we do a couple of things. So find your event on interact, or your event interact, whatever you called your blueprint before, your implemented interface. And off of this, we're going to want to change the conditions a little bit to counteract for our new system. So the first thing we want to do is drag this out a little bit because we're going to have to do a condition before this inspect condition. So let's create a branch. So we can press B and hold left click, and we can create this branch. Let's hook it up like so, put the true into this branch like normal, and our condition is going to be if it's auto read but a not bool, if it's not an auto read. And essentially what auto read means is, and I showed it in the beginning of the video through the analysis of the beginning, but what it does is it'll make it so we bypass inspecting automatically. So we want to check it first right here to see if we should then go into inspect and all of this. So if we're not in inspect, what this means is we're going to have to do something right here. So before we do that, let's go off of this false and let's do a reroute. Let's add a reroute node and let's start going into all of this logic. So one thing to understand is if we're in auto read, or if we don't want auto read at all, we're going to want to make sure that we have a flip-flop to go between just reading it regular and not reading it at all. So let's create a flip-flop. And we're going to want to go off of the A, and the first thing we're going to want to do is set this is A to a variable so that we can make sure we track this flip-flop and know when we're in the A state or the B state. So we know that it is in is A. After this, we're going to create a widget. Now we don't have this widget yet, so what we'll do is we will just keep going like as if we did, and then we'll create the widget later. So let's make sure after this we go to add to viewport, and this widget, by the way, is going to be our note widget that we are going to create and see everything out of. After this, we're going to want to make sure that we get the player character, and we're just basically now going to want to make it so we can't move once we're looking at the actual screen and the note in its entirety. So we're just going to want to get the character movement. This is something similar to if you remember, this is something similar to when we did our obstacle. We want to make sure that we disable movement right here so that the character cannot move. So we'll make it so it disables movement, and we'll clean it up a little bit, make it so it's like so. And then after this, we're just going to want to get the player controller and set ignore look input, just so that they cannot look around as well, because you don't want them to be able to look around and move around while they're in the note. Doesn't make sense, and it's a little bit more logistic like this. Great, so real quick before we move on, we might as well just create our widget now because we can't even compile and save our game. We can save, but we can't compile, so we might as well just create our widget right now. So let's go back to our first person map over here so we can see our entire content drawer. Let's go to first person, let's go to widgets, and let's create a new widget, and user interface, widget blueprint, and user widget. We're gonna call it w_note. Let's open that up. The first thing we're going to want to add is, of course, a canvas panel. So let's just add a canvas panel, dock it like so, and let's make sure that everything is set the way it should be. Great, it is. Let's go to our graph and let's actually add a new variable so we can track a couple things. Let's add a variable and let's make sure that we name it note text. Can I change this? Thank you. Let's name it, let's go to text and let's just name it note text. Then let's scroll down a little bit and let's make sure that we expose on spawn, and you can also make it public right here. Great, so now once we have this, we'll go back to our designer panel and we'll just make the basic of what it should look like for this tutorial's purpose, and then obviously you can change how you want it to look to cater your game. So what I did was I initially got a border, so let's put a border and let's put it on the canvas panel, and we're basically just going to anchor this to the bottom of the screen. Let's change the position, and I'll just use the exact same one I used for the beginning. So basically I used -325 for position X, -115 for position Y, and then the size was 650 by 50. And this will just make a pretty clear basis just so you can have a little spot to show the press space to read. And then we're basically just going to want to change alpha value of the brush color. So if you scroll down and go to brush color, right here you'll see the alpha value. You can decrease this and it'll make it so it's not as big of a white little box right here. So we can change this to whatever we'd like. We can also change this color to be black if you'd like, and then make it like darker like so. You can do it however you'd like. So we can do it like this, and we'll just compile and save. After this, we're going to want to actually put a horizontal box. So let's grab a horizontal box and let's put that on the border. And right here, we're going to make sure we name it bottom read horizontal box, and let's also call this border read border, and let's make sure that is a variable because we're going to be referencing this once we go into some of the user interface stuff. And then inside this horizontal box, we're essentially going to want to create a text. So let's just grab a text and dock it to be a child of this, and let's just make sure it's centered up here in the center, and make it appear in the center by pressing these two, horizontal alignment and vertical alignment, and then pressing fill. After this, we're going to just change it to press space to read, and then you can see it clear right there. We'll make this light or something like that right here, or whatever you'd like it to be, just to show your characters what they should be doing. Let's also set this horizontal box to be a variable, just in case you want to reference that later. But now this part is good. We want to then go to minimize all of this structure, and let's create another element. Let's create another canvas panel, and let's put that on this canvas panel actually. So we're just gonna keep it like this, and we're gonna call this note canvas panel, like so. And we're going to want to make sure we have firstly an image on this note canvas panel. And the reason for that is because we can make it so the background is a little bit darker. So to get the exact what I exactly used, well, first I anchored it to the full screen like you always should. So let's grab this. Oh, actually we're supposed to anchor this first, of course, the actual canvas panel. And so let's make it 0, 0, like so. And then we're going to make sure we have this image, and then set this to be 0, 0 as well. And then we're going to change the tint and the color and everything like that as we would please. So let's just set these all to 0 so that it's black, and let's make the alpha value something like 0.8, which is what I used, but you could obviously choose whatever you would like. Also, make sure you set this canvas panel as 5Z order, so it's always above. After this, let's make sure that we create another border, and this one will be on the canvas panel as well. We're going to make sure it's anchored to the full screen, just as we did previously. Make sure it's 0, 0. And this one is literally just there so it can hold, so let's set the alpha value to 0 on the tint. It's just here just so it can hold the background blur. So let's just grab the background blur, and let's just put that on here, and let's set the strength to be 5. And that's just gonna make it blurred in the background, just so that we can actually see the letter clear as day and not have to worry about that. We can then minimize this, and let's create a size box. And what this is used for, it's used to hold all of our lettering for our note to be a certain specific size. So let's grab this size box, and let me actually copy the dimensions from my previous project, just so there's no inconsistencies. So let's make this go to the middle, and let's change the position X and position Y to be 0, 0. Change the alignment to be 0.5 and 0.5. And then let's change the size X to be 900 and the size Y to be 1024. And you can see right now it's at a greater size. We can compile and save, and then make sure we set the Z order to be 1 as well. Also make sure that this border with the background blur is set to -1. Now let's go back to the size box, and let's put just the finishing touches. Let's get text, and let's put that on the size box. You can see this text will now stay inside. We're going to want to make sure that we change the text to have certain settings. So let me grab them right now. Let's make sure that it is, go to the text. Let's make sure that the size font, you can make whatever you'd like. I recommend 22 as a pretty good size. I'm going to change it to Roboto Light so it looks a little bit better. And change some of the margins as well. So since it's a little bit close to the top, you can either change the size box, or you can just add a margin to the top. So I like to create a margin. It looks a little bit better, and it's a little bit more customizable for us. So let me find the margin right now and change that. Right here, you go under advanced and then go to margin, and on the top, let's just change that to 50. So it's a little bit of a gap between right there. And then let's go scroll up to where you see text. Let's click on this bind and just make it the note text so it automatically updates every single time. And one important thing also is to scroll down until you see auto wrap text. Let's make sure we have that as true, and let's make sure that we set this to a variable. We can just call this note text in widget, just so we don't get confused. And the last thing now is going to minimizing this to get a new text, and let's put this also in this canvas panel as the last thing, and we're going to basically just anchor it to the bottom right. And this is just to make it so we can show press E to exit. So let's just make it so it goes to that location, and we can just move it up kind of, and then change the box sizing to match, and we'll just make it say press E to exit, and change it so it fits. And that seems pretty good. Let's just change it to Roboto regular or something like that, just so it's all good. And now we'll compile and save, and make sure that we go to our canvas panel when we're done and make the render opacity 0, so we don't see it like normal and we see it like this. Now that we have this done, let's compile and save and close our widget and go back to our base note and change it to w_note, so we can have it like so. The note text right here, we're going to set to the text that we have set per basis per blueprint. So let's just put it in like that and make sure that we go over all this, move it over a little bit, and let's go off this return value and actually promote this to a variable so we can watch this value. We can disconnect this target, connect it to our set new variable, and let's make sure we set this variable name to be something so we really know what it is. We can just name it note reference or note widget reference, so we completely understand. Now there won't be an error there and we can keep going on with what we have to do. So after this, we're going to be, remember, opening our widget. So we're going to be wanting to see the note and all of its contents. So let's make sure that we go to our note widget reference that we just created, go off of this and find that note canvas panel. So let's go uncheck this. And what do we call it? Note canvas. Let's find it right now because we just called it, let's see, note canvas panel. Make sure you set that to is a variable so you can reference it right in here. I thought I did that, but I guess I didn't. So let's grab this now and note canvas panel. You're gonna want to get that and make sure that you set the render opacity for that widget so we can make it context sensitive, which should work. But if it doesn't, you can just go to widget and get that one right there. That's the one we're looking for. Let's make sure we make this a little bit cleaner, bring these up and over like so. And since we want to see this, that means that we want the in opacity to be 1. After this, let's get our is a, and since we're done with this, let's just set it to false so that it resets, and now we'll go to B next time. So on B, we're going to want to basically do the opposite. We're going to want to grab this same value right here, and let's just set it to be not visible. So like I just said, we want to make that now, instead of 1, make it 0. And then after that, let's make sure that we go from this return value and just remove from parent because we don't want this widget to be on the screen anymore. And then inverse our disable movements so that now it does have a movement. And the way to do that is to go from our player character and our character movement. So we can just copy that and go off of this, and you want to get the default land movement mode, and that's the mode which is walking. And we're just going to go off of that and set the movement mode to be new custom mode 1, or just like this will be the new mode. It'll be default land mode. And so we'll just keep it like this, and then we can copy this, paste that, and go off of this set ignore look and make sure that it's no longer checked because we don't want to ignore the look. We want to be able to look around now since we are out of the widget. After this, we're just simply going to want to make sure we go over all of this. So let's compile and save. Our problem is that our target is actually supposed to go to our character movement, so make sure you do that. We can now compile, and let's go over all of this. And what we can do is we can right click and collapse nodes, and it'll make it one node like this, which is really good for us. It shows exactly what we want, and we can just rename this something easy to just remember exactly what it is. I named mine auto read note. So now we can see exactly what it is, and let's make sure we go into this, and just like there's an input, we're going to need an output. So off of the exit, you probably are going to want to do things like, for example, pick up note, which is what we'll have it say now. So what'll happen is when you're done reading the note, it'll go straight into pick up note or whatever you wanted to do. That's just an example. So yeah, we can have it like that now and keep going on with our tutorial. So the next thing we're going to want to do is similar to how this is, we can keep this all the same, but just move this over a bit and now call the new read note function that we made in the beginning. So let's look up read note, and you can make it context sensitive. We're going to want to use the one from the interact interface, but this is not the one. You'll know it's the one if it has this little letter, and this target is not this color. So what we can do is we can type read note, and then now you'll see the message one. That's how you know you have the right one. So what we'll do is we know that the target is the spawned BP inspect item, so we'll grab that, make this go up to the character because that's just a rerouted version of the character, and then this note text we're going to want to bring directly from our note text like so. So we can bring it like this, move this over, bring it all lined up, and cue that all out so then it looks good. Great, so now we have it all lined up, and now we're going to want to handle the functionality of this. So the place where all this functionality actually is in our BP item. So let's go to our BP item, we can open it up, and we're gonna need to change some of the settings in here just so it now applies to not only the inspecting item, but also the inspecting of our note, and making it so we can read the note and everything like that. So you'll find the event inspect from our previous tutorial. We can go above that and do event read note. This is exactly what you want. You'll know if you have this little blueprint thing right above, that's an interact blueprint, or interact interface, excuse me. And we're gonna want to do the same thing we did before. We can get this character that we already set, just copy and paste that, and just bring that in like so. And we're going to want to create the widget just like we did before, and call this w_note. And if you're a little confused why we're creating it 2 different times, remember that in our base note right here, we're handling if they don't want to bring up the inspect window and read it that way. This is more so if they want to have it like Resident Evil, where you just click on it and it pops up the widget right in front of your face. No inspecting of the item to spin it around or see any of that. So now we're handling if you do want to spin it around, and if you do want to go into inspection, making it so you can still read that note if you press space or whatever key you want. Great, so now let's go back in, make sure that the note text is hooked up like so. We're going to want to create a widget reference, just how we did before. So let's just rename that and make it widget or note widget reference. Great, so now we have 2 different references, the inspect widget and the note widget. After this, we're going to want to make sure we add to viewport, and we're going to want to do the one on the bottom because we already have the target right here. Then we're going to want to make sure that we set the render opacity, because now we are in it, we want to be able to see it just as we did before. So we'll go off of the note widget reference, and let's just get the read border, I believe it's called, and we're going to set the render opacity right there, and we're going to set it to be 1 because now we want it to be seen. We want it to make it so we can actually see everything. Great, so now let's do the exact same thing we did before. So let's go right here, and we can copy and paste. Now let's also clean this up a little bit so it's a little bit nicer, and then copy that instead and paste that. So basically it's going to first disable the input of the character and enable the input of this blueprint so that we can actually control it within this blueprint. Great, so let's compile and save that, and let's continue on with what we had to do. Great, so now at this point, let's make sure that we go to our variables and create a really important variable, or a really important variable, but it is called in note. So make sure we have that. It's going to be called in note, and we just basically want to see if we're in the note. So right here, when we are out of inspect, automatically let's just set that in note to be false, like so. And now we need to handle if we press that key that we want to press to be able to pop up the reading widget that shows just the letters or the notes that we want to show. So let's get a key. For example, I'm going to make it spacebar, so we can look up spacebar and get the event for clicking on spacebar, for pressing or releasing spacebar. And all we're going to want to do is similar to what we did before with the flip-flop. Let's create another flip-flop. So when we press it, one thing happens, and when we press it again, another thing happens. So let's go off of flip-flop, and just like before, let's set is a and promote it to a variable, make that go into a like so. And then we're going to want to basically do one condition and then do another condition off of the b. So let's grab our note widget reference. Let's go off of this and get the note canvas panel, just like so. Let's cue that so it's all straight, and then let's set the render opacity so that we can now see it. So since we can see it, we want the in opacity to be 1. Then we're going to want to set the is a to be false, and then set the in note variable to be true, because now we are in the note. This is now showing the stuff that is going to show the note. So that means that if we press B, you can probably guess we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to grab this, copy and paste it, bring that to straight here to is B, and let's reroute it to make it look a little bit cleaner. And then we're going to basically set the in note to now be false, because now we are no longer in the note. And of course you can use this with whatever key you want, or enhance input action, whatever you'd like to do for that. But let's just move this up, and we're gonna comment and just do pressed key to read note, and then we'll show bubble when zoomed and compile and save. Now let's move this down here just so we don't get confused. The top part is the most important with the actual events from the interact interface. So let's move them like right here, and we're going to need to edit a couple of things, specifically right here. So let's grab this is valid node. Since now we're doing it for the inspect, we also want to do it for the reading note. So let's grab this. Let's grab our note widget reference, put that right into the input object, and we're going to want to do the same exact thing basically, so we can copy and paste it. Let's go to remove from parent, but we're going to remove this, and instead of the inspect widget reference right here, we're going to want to do the note widget reference. Great, and then we're going to want to destroy the actor so we can compile and save. After this, we're basically almost done. We only have to change a couple of more things now. So all we have to do really is make it so when we're in the note now, because it's going to appear, we want to make it so we can't actually move around the note or rotate anything, because we're actually supposed to be reading the note, and it wouldn't really make sense if we can rotate stuff and things like that. So all we have to do is we have to make it so there's an if branch to determine if we're in that note, to see if we can actually do those things. So let's just drag this out a little bit, move this over, and let's just create an if branch, and we're going to want to do it for every single one of these events that move something. So let's just grab our in note variable, get a not bool, and plug that right into the condition just so we know if it's true. And the reason why I do the not bool right here is because I want to make it so it's true instead of false. So for example, if I did this, what this would mean is that we are in the note, and if we are in the note, then we don't want to do this, so it would go off this false. So we just want to make it easier and just do the not bool. It makes it a little bit easier for us. So let's just go back to where it's in the not bool, just so I can explain my frame of mind, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to understand as well. So same thing here. Let's just move this out, move over the mouse X, and we're going to again get a branch, put it in right here, and we can just kind of copy this actually and just make it so it's like pasted and just go straight like this off of this knot. We're gonna want to do the same exact thing for the vertical movement. So let's move this over, go straight here, go straight into that branch, go straight into the true. Same thing with WASD, because you don't want them to be able to move it with anything. So we can go straight off this, put in the branch, off this, and then put it to the true, the initial condition. And then of course the zooming in and zooming out as well. So let's move them over a bit so that I can move them like this and move them like this, and we're just going to move them like that, and bring this over so we can bring in this branch condition. And yeah, it's the same thing for the zooming in as well. It's just basically the same exact thing. We don't want them to be able to move the object at all if they're reading the object. But of course, if you want them to be able to rotate the object while they're still reading it, which usually isn't very popular in these games, but if you want that for whatever reason, you wouldn't include any of these steps. You wouldn't include these branch conditions. They'd automatically move. This is to kind of fix that problem, because no real horror games or scary games have that. Great, so now this should be everything, but let's actually check. So let's just get something very simple for us. We can just create a cube, and I'll just set up a little atmosphere right here just so we can determine all of the 3 different stages. Great, so now we have a little setup right here to differentiate between the inspectable note, the read-only note, just the automatic read note, and our inspectable item that we had previously in our previous tutorial. So since we have that previously, let's just bring it over so it's all in the same area and we can show the difference between all of them. So let's bring it over and make sure that they all still work. Let's make it so there's no snapping, it just comes right over. And yeah, okay, that's good. So now let's just make a child blueprint. So I'll show you, this is the process of creating your new notes. You're going to want to right click, create a child blueprint, and let's just call it bp_note just for simplicity. And let's bring this note right here, for example. And so we're going to have the same type of settings before. So let's go to interaction, our settings, and one thing that we can do is we can actually go to our bp_base note, and we can go to our interaction settings and our icon location. I found that your icon location by default is usually a little bit lower, so you can make your icon location about like 20 or so, and this will make it so your icon location is a little bit higher than the object and not a lot higher than the object, so it shows up the right way. You can also change your inner and outer sphere if you would like to. And let's go to our inspection, and let's just check that as enabled. And make our, and I'll make our inspection radius the same as I have in my other project, just so I can make it so it looks the same. So this is the rotation, our inspect rotation, excuse me. So let's just make this 85 and this 85 just so it shows towards us. And I know with this specific mesh, it should be 35 on the scaling to make it show it shows in the inspection viewport the right way. It's a really small mesh. And once we do that, let's go to our actual mesh settings. And so we know that we created the mesh. It's in right here, meshes, and let's go to letter. Let's find it right here. So we just put it in like so, and you won't see it right now, but the reason for that is because, like I said earlier, it's really small. So let's just make the scaling 13, 13, and 13. And now it shows up. It's just underneath the little table. So now it shows like so, and it's orientated the correct way. Let's just give it a name. So I just called this like murder letter, and then make the description anything you want. It looks like it was written recently, for example. And so now we have that all taken care of. And now the most important part, our note text. So I'll grab my note text from what I have on my other project, but basically I'll show you how it goes. You can scroll down and make this panel a little bit bigger if you want to actually navigate your notes a little bit easier. So the way that I did it, if you want to make it look like one space, I found that it's pretty easy to do 2 spaces right here. And if you don't know how to do that, you can simply just hold your left shift and press enter, and you can get 2 spaces. And you can find whatever you'd like. If you hover over right there, you'll see that this window pops up and it'll show you everything you have written. So yeah, you can go through this. I found you can write a decent amount and it still shows up in here. So yeah, this one will be the auto read. So what we'll do is we will make sure that we have the auto read checked. So let's just scroll down, go to auto read and check that, and we'll show the difference between it right now. What we can then do is we can duplicate it, bring it over here for this inspectable one, and then just make sure that for here we have the auto read not checked, and we'll see the difference now, or at least we should see the difference. If we don't, we will fix the errors that we have. So let's go into the level, go to play from here, and once this loads, let's see how everything looks. So in the inspectable note right now, there should be an inspection that pops up. There is, so we can rotate this around if we would like, and of course we can do WASD and zoom in and out. So if it was English, we could read it, or whatever language this is, you can read it like that, and then we'll press space, and now you can see that this pops up, which is what we have programmed into the actual actor. And if you press space again, you will see that nothing happens. So we'll fix that right now, but if you press E, it'll close it entirely. So yeah, when you press space, nothing happens. So that's for the inspectable note. When we go to the read-only note, yeah, the space doesn't work, so we'll fix that right now. So then when you press space again, it does work. Great, so now we're back. Once you go to the inspectable item, it's the same ordeal. You can obviously do zoom in, zoom out, and press E to leave. But right now, let's figure out what's happening where we can't press space and fix that issue right now. The reason is because once we go to our BP_inspect item, we don't actually set the in opacity to be 0. So once you send the in opacity to be 0, it'll make it so you can no longer see it. So let's go back to the level, press play, and now if we go in here and if we press E on it, we can press E again to close it, which is how you close it there. But if you go in here and press space, you can see that you can see it there, and if you press space again, it'll go away. Of course, while you press space, you can't actually rotate the letter. I'm trying to right now, but I can't rotate the letter. I can't press WASD, anything like that. But if I press space, it'll go away, and then I can again, and zoom in, or whatever I would like to do. And yeah, so this is the system. It works pretty well. Again, it works just like this, and if you'd like to do it here as well with the regular inspection, you can do that. So you have 3 different ways to do it. And it's pretty customizable and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you'd like to get these files pretty easily instead of having to follow through this whole tutorial, as well as all the other tutorials, whether it's this obstruction or the door or the crouching or the locomotion, metahuman, whatever it is, footsteps, everything else, we have it all on Patreon for you to download there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like and subscribe, and comment down below more tutorials you guys would like to see, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye guys.